Hello everyone, I'm Benjamin Cure. Welcome back to a new episode of our latest series, One-on-One with Benjamin Cure. Today's guest has been a public servant for over 2 decades now and started his journey right here in the city of Miami in Little Havana, where he was born and raised. He attended Belen Jesuit Preparatory School and graduated from there. He is also an FIU graduate for undergrad, as well as going on to earn 2 graduate degrees, one at Princeton and one at the University of Pennsylvania. He previously served as a village manager for North Bay Village before now moving on to become the City of Miami District 4 Commissioner, as well as the chairman of the DDA. Let's welcome in Commissioner Rosado. Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ben, thank you for having me.
Awesome. And so I don't know how well you remember this or not, but our paths have crossed over the years a couple times.
True.
I went to school with your daughter for many years at St. Teresa, a great school. But we didn't actually have our first interaction of substance until I actually made my way over to FIU. I was just starting off as a freshman, and they told me to reach out to you as a big SIG-EP guy to kind of get some guidance on the FIU experience as well as some career stuff. And you were very kind at the time. You gave me a lot more time than I probably deserved. You answered every question that I had. And so it was a great experience, and I remembered you fondly because of that. And then our paths sort of crossed again now when I was working within the city and you now becoming a commissioner on the dais. So incredibly, proud to kind of meet you here and meet you halfway.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks.
Amazing. So I think I want to hit the ground here running the way that you did once you were elected with what I believe can truly be your magnum opus if it's executed the way in which I guess you envision, which is your CASA initiative. Can you tell residents a little bit more about that and where you came up with the idea, as well as what you think it'll do for District 4 as a whole?
Absolutely. And I appreciate that introduction. Yes, I came into this having been a public servant for a couple of decades, right? And so I come in with all these ideas and I thought to make it, as effective as possible, I've got to really sort of hone in on a strategy, some sort of overarching vision of what we want to do for District 4. And, in speaking with my staff, we started throwing some ideas around to try to give it some shape. And we realized the things that we were most interested in fell into 4 pillars. And it's kind of perfect because it's District 4, right? And the pillars are community, adaptability, safety, and affordability. And so everything we work on falls under at least one of those pillars. And the reality is CASA is also a word that means house or home in Spanish, which makes sort of perfect sense for our district, which is a very Hispanic district. And the idea is that if we get all these things done, we're making District 4 a better house, a better home for all of our residents for many years to come. So we're very proud of the work that we're doing, and everything falls into our CASA vision.
For those who may not be as familiar geographically or in terms of the demographic of District 4, what is District 4 to you?
District 4 is the southwest part of the city. So it's from 17th Avenue West all the way to the Palmetto. And on the southern end, it's on US 1, so it looks at Coconut Grove without ever crossing into it. And then it wraps around Coral Gables in West Miami. And on the northern part, it's Northwest 7th Street. So you've got portions of Shenandoah, Silver Bluff, Coral Gate, which is where I reside, Golden Pines, which is the Douglas Park area. You have West Little Havana and the bulk of Flagami. So it's a very established neighborhood, lots of homes that are about 100 years old. It's where a lot of our parents and our grandparents moved to when they arrived here from Cuba. It is a predominantly Hispanic district, but lots of folks are obviously bilingual, very active part of the district, part of the city rather. And so I'm so proud to represent it. I've lived there for several decades, and it's what I love to call home.
It's a beautiful district. I've spent so much time there at the parks growing up as well, and that's a big part of your really who you are as a public servant, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I'm curious because you are, I think one of your superpowers is you really have your ear to the ground, especially because you just came out of a special election, and you were very recently, much more recently than the other elected officials around you, knocking on doors.
Yes.
In that process, what was the number one complaint that you heard?
So you would think in a lot of places the number one complaint might be like crime or folks saying, oh, the streets are dirty and the flooding. And in Miami, at least in District 4, a lot of those things are very much minimized. Folks love the police. They love fire rescue. We're doing a lot of work to keep the streets clean and dry. But the number one complaint pretty universally has been the permitting process in the city of Miami. And that affects not just folks that are building larger buildings, but it affects, abuelito and abuelita that are trying to do a renovation to their bathroom. It affects a lot of folks trying to open up small businesses. And so it's one of the things I've been very laser focused on since I've gotten on the commission. And that is to work with the administration closely to reform the permitting process, right? Because the reality is time is money. The longer it takes you to get a permit, the more interest you pay on a bank loan you might have taken out, the longer it takes for you to be able to expand your house to be able to accommodate, the kid that you have now. the harder it is for you to open up that first small business that you've been excited to get open. And so anything we can do to make that more user friendly is a good thing. I do want to applaud the administration. They've been working, as I mentioned, closely with me. And so anything that I've been putting forth, they've said, yes, let's go with that. Let's try to move forward on that. And so very recently, in the last couple of weeks, we cut a ribbon at what they call the Miami Riverside Center, the MRC. That's where the main administrative offices are for the city, right? We have the commissioners are in City Hall, and so is the mayor and the manager, but the bulk of the staff is actually located downtown in the MRC building. And one of the things that we've done recently is help to cut the ribbon on getting on the first floor, right in the lobby, right as you come in, a help desk for folks pulling permits for their homes and folks pulling permits to open up a small business. So I think that starts to make it more user-friendly. There's a lot more work to be done, but I think the fact that as soon as you come into the building, those are the first faces you see, I think that's a great step in the right direction.
I think that's where your experience as the village manager really comes into play here and is so valuable in terms of you have a real perspective on the fact that time is money and that many residents simply don't have that kind of money, to do these kinds of large scale repairs and permitting, which is of course kind of all entailing. Beyond that, you've been a big proponent of people say the city of Miami is relatively slow when it comes to certain things and inefficient. How do you make it more efficient? And what are some of the results that you've seen so far?
Yeah, so I think it was really great to have, for me to have served as a city manager where I was running a smaller city and I had to be very hands-on, because when you do that, you just don't have a lot of staff, right? So you have no choice but to be as efficient as possible, given that you have very limited resources. And so even though the city of Miami is much bigger, I still look at it in the same way. Like, why do we need so many people to sign off on something where maybe one or two people is sufficient? And so, having, for example, that permitting staff meet you downstairs is tremendously helpful. And what ends up happening, it's like a concierge service. So the person that you talk to is going to now walk you through the entire process. And we've done the same thing in District 4 specifically, because we're not located that close to downtown, right? So we started up an initiative where you can pull your permits in District 4 at one of our two parks that we have offices in. So we have an office at Coral Gate Park on 32nd Avenue and Southwest 16th Street. And we have an office as well at Manolo Reyes Park on 60th Avenue and Southwest 2nd Street. And so every sort of alternating Tuesday, you can go to one or the other. And we have staff there that's going to help you walk through the whole permit process. So the person that you meet is going to give you their phone number, and they're going to help you like from first step to the very last. So if you are stuck on the permitting aspect of getting an approval, they're going to figure out through the plumbing inspector what's going on that you haven't been able to pull that. So that's like a one-stop shop. I think residents really like it. It demystifies this very sort of confusing permitting process, much more user-friendly. And at the end of the day, the city in a way is a business, and we're here for our customers who are the residents.
And you're not just talking about it, you're actually doubling down on that notion through the SAVE initiative, which is going to be 50% off permits throughout the entirety of 2026. Yes. That is an amazing initiative. I know you're going to be promoting it throughout 2025. Tell me how that came about. Sure. How did you kind of get that passed? How did you facilitate that? Because it seems like something that's very common sense, but I'm sure it's not as easy as it sounds to just say out loud.
Yeah, so it's an idea that I actually borrowed from the person that's now the mayor of North Bay Village, Rachel Streitfeld. It's something she introduced there as a commissioner. And the idea is that we want folks to be able to age in place in their homes, and we want to make their homes as affordable as possible. And so that means helping to protect homes against storms, right? Hurricane season is essentially half the year, which means there's always a chance of a heavy wind or a heavy rain. And so we want to help folks to protect their homes against, those sorts of storms. And that means helping them to be able to secure permits to replace their roofs, put in generators, put in impact windows and doors, put in as well as energy efficient appliances, low flush toilets, things like that. So anything we can do to help folks preserve their homes and bring down the cost of having that house is something we want to support. So SAVE stands for Stormproof Assistance and Value Enhancements. And the idea is that if you come in to pull a permit for any of the things I mentioned in the year 2026, you're going to get half off your permit fees. So again, roof replacement, installation of impact windows and doors, installation of generators, energy efficient appliances, seawalls. For those folks that live on the water, replacing your seawall, you get half off on your permits as well. So come in anytime during 2026. You don't have to finish the permitting process, right, during the year. So if you come in towards the tail end of 2026 and you started it, you should still get half off on that permit. So this is a way to say, please, all those things that you've been thinking about doing but have put off, go ahead and come on in.
As a resident, you have a very invaluable perspective. What do you think is going to be the most common reason why people are pulling these permits? Do you think it'll be for the storm-proof windows? Do you think it'll be for their roof? What do you suspect?
I think a lot of folks, have been thinking about replacing their roofs, and the roofs have leaks, and it's been a while since they've been thinking about it, and I think that we're going to see a lot of those.
You've talked about connecting Miami's neighborhoods beyond just transportation, right? Although your experience as an urban planner has certainly lent itself to that through sidewalks, through encouraging other methods of transit. What do you think is going to be the area of improvement in terms of transit or connectivity that sees the most improvement over the course of the next 12 months in your district?
Absolutely. So one of the things that's going on right now is we're actually doing a survey on the city's trolley routes. So the city has trolley routes throughout the entire city, essentially. And right now they're looking for feedback on the trolley routes. If you think it can serve you better if it goes, on Southwest 4th Street versus Southwest 6th Street, let us know, because those are actually pretty easy adjustments to make. And so we want to hear feedback. And you can do that through the city's website. And you can also just, Google City of Miami Trolley, and you'll be able to respond to the survey. We want to hear from the residents and see how we can make your lives easier. We've also been, and this is really more focused towards downtown, but we're expanding the way that we use Freebee. So folks will go from the central business district, which is like where the county government is, and Bayfront Park and all of that, over to Brickell and back again. Previously you wouldn't be able to ride Freebee to cross that Brickell Bridge. And a lot of folks have said, we'd love to see that connection happen. And it was a no-brainer. So we're able to get that done. But anything, folks always complain about traffic, right? We all say, oh God, traffic. And I always say, if we want to, reduce traffic, we've got to make all other forms of transportation better. So that means making it easier to walk, to bike, to ride the trolley, to ride Freebee, to take mass transit, Metro Mover, you name it. We want to get folks out of their cars. We've got to make all other forms of transportation just that much better.
You'll have also supported reviving Miami Loop, which is a very ambitious effort that is about 223 miles total. Yes. Where did that come about? How did you know it was the right time? And what do you foresee being the biggest area of improvement in the most near future?
So the idea originally came from my friend Mari Chael. She's the one that had mentioned it to me, that there is a way to map out the Underline and the Commodore Trail and Ludlam Trail and Oak Cutler Trail and a series of these, the Bay Walk downtown, the River Walk, etc. If you actually connect them, which is possible, you end up with a network of over 223 miles that takes you throughout most of Miami-Dade County. What I find particularly exciting about it is that actually, if we're able to get it built, it crosses all 5 City of Miami Commission districts. So it's a way to unite our city, and our city is at the heart of the county. So it's a way to unite our city and also show our city as being like the focal point of Miami-Dade County, and that once you're in the city, you can get to just about anywhere, north and south. And so what we started to do is we started to convene folks that are the leaders for each of the individual segments to see how we can support each other's individual efforts, as well as looking for ways to design physical connections that get you from one to the other. There's a way to get it done, and it's something that is multi-generational and transformational in nature. And so it's going to require some work for some time, but you know what? We're going to get it done, and our kids and grandkids will get to enjoy it as well.
I love that because I grew up in the transportation world with mom, and would always hear people say throughout the years very pessimistically, yeah, everybody wants public transit, but nobody wants to use it themselves. And as I've gotten older, I really do disagree with that notion, because I was privileged to be work as one of the consultants towards the Miami-Dade Metro Express busway transit, which was the county's most ambitious project in about a decade. When it came to public transit, it was 20 miles of busway, and I was on the busway for the first 2 weeks as well, not just the ribbon cutting. So I was really riding it. I was there for some of the early issues and maybe bumps in the road, but really seeing how many people leverage that to get to work and really need something like that has totally changed my perspective on public transit, and certainly has shown me how important it is. So I really do hope that this Miami Loop initiative really takes flight, and
we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. By the way, in terms of transit, for folks that are like, I don't care about that, I'm always going to drive, I like having a car, where I live and work are really far apart from each other, I'm definitely going to use a car. If you're one of those folks, and there are many, you still want transit to work well, because you know what? The better transit works, the fewer people are in your way as you're driving, right?
I think it's the quickest way to get people on board.
There you go. Exactly.
So Miami voters will once again be on their way to the polling stations this December for the runoff election. What do you expect out of the next mayor, and what qualities would you like them to have?
I think we're going to have a great commission, and fortunately, we have 2 very qualified mayoral candidates, and I'm happy to serve with whoever's elected. Whoever wins the mayor's seat, hopefully is somebody that's going to work very closely with the commission. In fact, something that I'd like to see done right away, and I don't know that it's a standard thing in a city as big as Miami, but smaller cities certainly know to do this, is to have a goal-setting session. I think we should identify what are collective priorities so that we're all working in tandem on a few really important things rather than individual fiefdoms.
Regardless of who the next mayor is, what are, let's say, the top 2 issues that you really want to bring to the forefront right away and would like to work with that mayor and the rest of the commission in addressing?
Sure. So, okay, you asked for 2. I think I may give you 3, but
Go ahead.
I'll do them relatively quickly. I think there's still a lot of work to be done on permitting reform. We've covered that quite a bit. Housing affordability is my personal number 1 priority. And so I think we need to take a series of steps to make it more affordable for folks to live in Miami. This year, we lowered the millage rate. We're giving rebates to senior citizens that are, modest income homesteaded property owners. And we are also, hopefully taking steps in the next few weeks to make it possible to build as of right on properties that are owned by religious institutions, nonprofits, educational institutions. And I'd like to see us really very much move forward on creating the Miami Loop. This is a parks and recreation amenity for everybody in the city of Miami.
And it's a way of expanding what's already there, right? And I'm really putting it to use, which is, I think, an incredible initiative. One of the things that you supported that was on the November ballot was the Charter Review Commission, which people voted overwhelmingly yes to, which I think is kudos to you and to the other commissioners who really championed that cause. What do you think you're going to look for in the person that you select or appoint to that seat? Or what qualities would you like the people who are on that review commission to have overall?
That's a great question. I'm going to be appointing somebody that has the best interest of both District 4 and the city at heart, somebody that's kind of a generalist, that has their ear to the ground and knows, broadly speaking, what the kinds of things that folks are looking for. So I think it is important to be able to look at our city charter, which is our city constitution, essentially, look at it with fresh eyes and be able to propose some ideas that we can implement relatively quickly to make our city stronger, right? Cities evolve over time, but our laws don't necessarily evolve with them. And this gives us a chance to take a fresh look at our Constitution and bring it to the 21st century.
So circling back to something we mentioned previously, affordable housing, I'm reading an excellent book right now called There Is No Place for Us by Brian Goldstone. And it's about this new issue of working homelessness that you see popping up really across America. And Miami is sort of becoming no stranger to that, I think, when you talk about affordability and many of the struggles that people are having. One of the most shocking things is that more than 11 million Americans are spending about an average of 78% of their income on housing. Is the solution in Miami to affordable housing as simple as building more affordable housing, or is there a more innovative approach that maybe you've thought of or that you've discussed behind closed doors that you think might be a good plan to go forth with?
I think there's no one sort of silver bullet, unfortunately. I think we need to be able to address it on an extensive number of fronts. And so I mentioned that hopefully in the next few weeks, the commission will support my initiative to allow housing as of right on parcels owned by educational institutions, governments at all levels, local, county, state, federal, religious institutions, and nonprofits. And the reason for that is that there's actually hundreds of parcels owned by those entities, even just in the city of Miami. And so if we allow them to do that, it does a couple things. Number one, because the land is already owned by those organizations, you don't have to worry about buying new land, which in the city of Miami we know is very expensive in every neighborhood. You can build housing on parcels that are already owned by those entities, and the requirement would be that you provide it at a workforce level, right? So I'm not talking about letting nonprofits build luxury housing. I'm saying you can build housing, but it's got to cater to folks that have, modest incomes. And so this should allow us to expand by hundreds or maybe even thousands the number of housing units that are created in the city of Miami. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity out there. I've mentioned permitting as part of this, which sounds like more of an efficiency and convenience type of thing, but it's not. The longer it takes you to get that permit, the more you are taking out as a bank loan to get something built, and the more expensive it is ultimately for you. And typically it can be in the hundreds or thousands of dollars added onto your other housing costs. So anything that we can do to make government more efficient should make people's lives naturally more affordable.
Commissioner, thank you so much for your time. Quick note here on FIU, because there's a lot of great stuff going on with them. They're
proud Panther.
Yes, they're probably going to be playing in a bowl game. But as a school overall, kind of our starting point really as working people here in Miami, They are ranked as a top 50 university. They're also #1 in social mobility.
Yes.
Can you tell me how important FIU was to your journey and bringing you to where you are now as a commissioner of District 4?
I have to tell you, I think the fact that FIU is tops in social mobility may be the most important ranking of any college anywhere.
Agreed.
Because the reality is folks that are going there, many of them are from families that have, make modest incomes. They're not necessarily coming to it from, as the kids of parents who went to college themselves. And so the fact that folks go in and their lives are just changed for the better forever at a very affordable price is just transformative in a multi-generational sort of way. So I couldn't be prouder to be a Panther alum, a Panther parent, a Panther husband, as a Panther adjunct faculty member. I mean, I just think FIU is pretty amazing.
They are. And you are one of their shining examples and role models for many of us. So thank you so much for your time today and great work on District 4. And we look forward to seeing what kind of progress you make within the city in this current role and maybe even beyond. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben.